The helicopter's rotors shredded the desert air, kicking up clouds of ochre dust that stung exposed skin and painted the soldiers' uniforms in streaks of earth. Sergeant Elena Harper gripped the side rail, boots pressed against the scuffed metal floor, knuckles white from the tension. The base sprawled below her like a miniature fortress, sandbags stacked in haphazard defense, the dull hum of generators and distant artillery filling the valley with a sense of constant unease. Elena's green eyes scanned the perimeter, noting guard rotations, vehicle placements, and vantage points even before her boots touched the ground. Every movement was deliberate, every glance strategic. Years of experience as a sniper had trained her to observe, to anticipate, to live in the moments others took for granted. When her boots finally landed, the dust swallowed her in a suffocating cloud. The helicopter lifted off, leaving the low hum of the base and distant explosions that had become almost ordinary. Soldiers nearby paused mid-task, some whispering her name with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Sergeant Elena Harper, she, of 305 confirmed kills, one of the deadliest snipers the U.S. military had ever trained, had arrived at Forward Operating Base Echo. Rumors of her reputation had preceded her for weeks, and now she moved through the camp like a ghost, silently absorbing the environment, measuring angles, memorizing terrain, all while maintaining an impeccable posture that radiated authority. Corporal James Fletcher, weapons technician and resident skeptic of everything, was immediately aware of her presence. He had been stationed at the base for over 3 years, managing the arsenal, repairing weapons, and keeping the snipers and infantry equipped. Fletcher was thorough, meticulous, and known for his dry humor, which often clashed with newcomers' expectations. His first impression of Elena was complicated. She was young, perhaps only in her late 20s, yet the air she carried suggested decades of experience. There was a calm confidence in the way she surveyed her surroundings, a controlled intensity in her movements that immediately unsettled him. Fletcher leaned against a supply crate, observing her from a distance. Curiosity mingled with a hint of skepticism. He had dealt with many snipers before, some brilliant, some reckless, but there was something different about Elena. The way she carried herself, the subtle adjustments in her stance, and the deliberate way she handled her equipment spoke of a precision that wasn't just skill, it was instinct. His trained eye noted the scuffed toe of her boot, the slight wear on her tactical gloves, and the meticulous cleaning of her sidearm, all signaling a soldier who respected her tools as extensions of her body. Elena moved toward the armory with fluid grace, her eyes scanning for potential threats, friendly units, and tactical advantages in the layout of the base. Fletcher straightened slightly when he noticed her struggling with an M82 sniper rifle slung across her back. He recognized the model immediately. It was one of the older, temperamental rifles in the base's inventory. Its reputation for jamming under less than perfect conditions was infamous, and he wondered if she was aware of the weapon's quirks. His fingers itched to intervene. "Here," Fletcher called, stepping forward with a casual air that masked his curiosity. He held out his hand toward the rifle. "Let me give you a hand. That one's finicky." Elena paused mid-step, eyes narrowing slightly, but not in suspicion, rather, in a subtle acknowledgement of caution. She studied him for a heartbeat before replying, her voice calm, measured, carrying the weight of someone accustomed to authority. "I think I can manage," she said. Fletcher's lips twitched in a smirk. "Sure you can. These things have a mind of their own." Without waiting for consent, he approached, fingers deftly checking the rifle's mechanisms. Elena's hands hovered near the weapon, but she allowed him to inspect it, her posture unyielding yet controlled. Fletcher quickly realized the rifle was indeed jammed, a small, almost imperceptible malfunction that could ruin a mission if unnoticed. He bit back a comment, unsure whether to reveal the issue outright or see how she handled it. First day. Jitters? He asked lightly, trying to mask both his professionalism and his subtle intrigue. Elena's gaze snapped toward him, sharp and unwavering, and she gave a faint, wry smile. Not even close, she said, her tone soft but unmistakably firm. There was no arrogance in her words, only an unshakable confidence that left Fletcher momentarily unsettled. Around them, other soldiers began to take notice. Whispers spread like wildfire. This was the sniper whose reputation had preceded her arrival. A few nodded in quiet respect. Others exchanged incredulous glances. The tension between Fletcher and Elena was palpable, charged not with hostility, but with the electric curiosity of two skilled professionals measuring each other. Fletcher finally straightened, holding the M82 in a careful, respectful manner. He gestured toward Elena. "I can fix this? Don't worry, won't take long." Elena studied him, weighing the offer, then nodded. "Fine, but I expect results." As Fletcher set to work, Elena stepped back slightly, observing every movement. Her eyes, trained for detail, noted the precision with which he disassembled the rifle, cleaned each component, and reassembled it. She recognized efficiency and skill, and a grudging respect began to form, unspoken, yet undeniable. Fletcher, for his part, was aware that he was witnessing more than mere competence. He was watching instinctive mastery. The moments stretched in quiet focus. Fletcher's hands moved like a surgeon's, meticulous and deliberate. Elena's presence was a steady weight, a silent assessment of his capability. For all his experience, he couldn't ignore the curiosity creeping in. Who was this woman, and what had she endured to earn the fear and admiration of her peers? Finally, Fletcher closed the rifle's chamber and stepped back, brushing dust from his hands. "There," he said simply, though his voice carried an unfamiliar note of respect. "Good as new." Elena took the rifle, weighing it in her hands, testing its balance, and finally shouldering it. She fired a single round into the distant target range. The shot rang out, precise and true, and the bullet struck dead center. Fletcher's eyes widened slightly, a rare moment of genuine surprise crossing his features. "Impressive," he muttered, more to himself than to her. Elena's lips curved faintly, not in smugness, but in quiet acknowledgement. "Thanks. Your help wasn't bad either," she said. Fletcher nodded, feeling the unusual twinge of both humility and admiration. The jammed rifle had been more than a tool. It had become a bridge between them, a shared moment of understanding. Neither fully realized it yet, but this encounter had set the stage for the challenges, respect, and revelations that would follow. As the sun dipped behind jagged mountains, casting long shadows across the base, Elena walked past the armory toward the sleeping quarters. Fletcher watched, an unfamiliar sense of anticipation stirring within him. He had encountered skilled soldiers before, but none like her. The stories he had heard did not capture the gravity of her presence, nor the quiet storm of skill, precision, and lethal calm she carried with her. In that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. Fletcher recognized that he was in the presence of someone extraordinary, a soldier, whose experience, determination, and skill would leave a mark on everyone she encountered. Elena, meanwhile, observed the base with the practiced eyes of a warrior, already noting strategies, weak points, and the rhythm of the camp, preparing silently for what lay ahead. The dusty wind swirled around the base, carrying the scent of sand, gunpowder, and anticipation. Both knew this was only the beginning. The helicopter had left, the rifle was fixed, and a story of skill, respect, and unyielding precision was quietly unfolding amidst the chaos of war. No one spoke it aloud, but the soldiers who had witnessed the encounter felt it. Sergeant Elena Harper had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. Fletcher's skepticism had been challenged, his assumptions shattered, and a tension half admiration, half apprehension settled over him. This was not just a meeting of two soldiers. It was the beginning of a reckoning, of talent, of experience, and of unspoken legacies forged in dust, discipline, and danger. And at the heart of it all, the jammed M82 lay as both a test and a symbol of resilience, of skill, and of the quiet, deadly intensity that was Elena Harper. The desert sun beat down relentlessly, painting the forward operating base in harsh shades of orange and brown. Sergeant Elena Harper adjusted the M82 rifle in her hands, testing its weight, its balance, as if it were an extension of her own body. Every sniper carried a ritual with their weapon, a silent conversation of trust and precision. But the rifle refused to obey. She racked the bolt, felt the resistance, and cursed softly under her breath. The jam wasn't catastrophic, but it was enough to ruin timing, to turn precision into disaster. Corporal James Fletcher, standing a few meters away, watched with an inscrutable expression. He had repaired countless weapons in his career, and yet there was something about watching a sniper struggle with a jammed rifle that made him feel oddly responsible. He stepped forward, voice casual, but edged with curiosity. "Looks like she's having a little trouble," he muttered to himself, though the words carried to Alana's ears. Alana's glare, calm and measured, met his eyes. "I can handle it," she said, her tone firm, but with a hint of irony that suggested she was aware of his scrutiny. Fletcher's smirk deepened. He had seen cocky rookies, experienced snipers, and all sorts in between, but her calm, combined with the subtle edge in her tone, made him pause. There was no arrogance here, only precision tempered with patience, and an unspoken challenge. The soldiers around them slowed their movements, sensing the tension. A sniper struggling with a weapon wasn't unusual, but a sniper of Elena's reputation fumbling even briefly was extraordinary. Whispers rippled through the small group of soldiers nearby. Fletcher heard them and felt a mix of pride and incredulity. Here she was, the sniper everyone had feared or admired, facing a minor obstacle, yet handling it with an elegance that few could match. Fletcher knelt beside the rifle, inspecting the mechanism carefully. His hands moved like clockwork, checking the bolt, the firing pin, the magazine, and the chamber for even the smallest obstruction. "These older M82s can be temperamental," he explained aloud, though his voice carried a subtle undertone of admiration. "A small jam can throw off a shot completely. Timing, patience, even the slightest misalignment can ruin everything." Elena observed him quietly, her sharp eyes missing nothing. She noticed the way he worked, the care in his fingers, the fluidity of movement that came from years of experience. Yet, she could also detect the tension beneath his controlled demeanor, a subtle nervous energy that told her he was both curious and wary of her skill. She weighed her words carefully before replying. "I understand," she said simply. "I don't need a demonstration." Fletcher chuckled softly, a rare sound for a man usually stoic and professional. "I wasn't going to give you one," he replied, though he felt a faint edge of challenge in her tone. "I just thought you might appreciate a little guidance." He carefully removed the magazine, cleaned the chamber, and worked to realign the bolt. The desert wind carried dust, and a bead of sweat trickled down his temple. Even in this mundane task, tension hung thick in the air. Elena adjusted her stance, feet planted firmly in the sand, muscles coiled and ready. Her green eyes never left the rifle, noting every tiny adjustment Fletcher made. A sniper's patience was legendary, and hers was unparalleled. She understood that a rifle could be as temperamental as a battlefield, and that precision required respect for both. Yet even in this moment, she felt a spark of irritation, not at Fletcher, but at the minor obstacle that threatened to delay her focus. Careful with the bolt, she advised quietly, her voice steady but authoritative. One misalignment, and the timing's off. You'll know by the click. Fletcher glanced at her, slightly startled by the accuracy of her observation. He had worked on hundreds of weapons, but few had noticed such subtleties. Noted, he said, impressed despite himself. Around them, the soldiers watched silently. Some had followed Elena's exploits, reading reports and hearing stories of her 305 confirmed kills. Few had expected to witness her in person. Seeing her calmly manage a weapon problem, observing her technique and precision, left them in awe. Even Fletcher felt a stirring of respect that was difficult to articulate. She wasn't just skilled. She was methodical, deliberate, and commanding, even when facing something as mundane as a jammed rifle. Finally, Fletcher slid the magazine back into place, double-checked the firing pin, and racked the bolt smoothly. "Try it now," he said, stepping back. His voice carried a mixture of relief and anticipation, as if he were both teacher and observer of something extraordinary. Elena shouldered the rifle once more, her movements fluid, almost instinctual. She took aim at a distant target down the Yonli. Range, eyes narrowing in concentration. Time seemed to stretch, the hum of the bass, the chatter of soldiers, even the wind itself faded into the background. One breath in, one breath out. She squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, a precise crack that echoed across the desert. The bullet struck dead center, perfectly aligned with the target. Fletcher exhaled, unconsciously straightening, a rare smile touching his lips. "Impressive," he muttered under his breath, more to himself than to her. The soldiers nearby exchanged amazed glances, murmurs of admiration floating through the dusty air. Elena had transformed a potential failure into a flawless execution. A testament to her skill, patience, and discipline, Elena lowered the rifle, eyes flicking toward Fletcher. Her expression was unreadable, but there was a quiet acknowledgement in her gaze. "Your help wasn't bad," she said, voice calm, controlled, carrying just enough warmth to signal approval without breaking her composure. Fletcher blinked, caught off guard by the subtle compliment. "Glad to be of service," he replied, though internally he wrestled with an unfamiliar mixture of pride and humility. He had repaired countless rifles, guided numerous snipers, and seen incredible skill, but nothing had prepared him for this combination of precision, calm, and lethal confidence. The moment was interrupted by the distant roar of an engine, vehicles, patrolling the base, and the constant buzz of activity that never ceased in a war zone. Soldiers returned to their duties, though whispers about Elena's presence persisted. Fletcher remained kneeling beside the rifle, quietly marveling at the fluidity of her movements, the efficiency with which she had handled both frustration and the weapon itself. He realized something in that moment. Skill alone wasn't what made Elena Harper exceptional. It was patience, focus, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. The jammed M82 had been more than a minor obstacle. It had been a test, both for her and for him. And she had passed effortlessly. Fletcher stood slowly, dusting off his hands. He felt a rare twinge of nervous excitement, the kind a soldier might feel before a high-stakes mission. He had underestimated her at first glance, as many did, and now he understood why. Elena Harper wasn't just a sniper. She was a force of nature, a master of precision, and someone whose reputation was earned, verified, and impossible to ignore. Elena shouldered the rifle again, moving toward the training area. Fletcher followed at a distance, watching her every step. He could see how soldiers subtly gave her space, acknowledging her skill without needing to voice it. Every motion she made conveyed authority, calm, and lethal confidence. As she set up another shot, Fletcher felt a mixture of anticipation and curiosity. What else could she do? How many challenges had she faced, and how had she survived to reach this point? Her record of confirmed kills flashed through his mind, and he suddenly understood the weight of her experience. Each shot she had fired, each mission she had completed, had been earned through discipline, focus, and sheer mental fortitude. The desert wind swirled around them again, carrying dust and the scent of scorched earth. Fletcher took a deep breath, steadying himself. He had never felt more aware of the presence of another soldier, the combination of skill and poise so rare it bordered on unsettling. Elena fired again, every shot precise, every target neutralized with the efficiency of someone who had spent years honing her craft. The soldiers around them began to murmur quietly, sharing glances that conveyed unspoken admiration. Fletcher, too, felt the stirrings of respect grow into something more substantial, a recognition that he was witnessing not just a remarkable sniper, but a living legend in motion. Finally, Elena lowered the rifle and turned to Fletcher. Her gaze was calm, steady, and almost amused, as if she had expected nothing less from the rifle, and perhaps nothing less from him. Fletcher nodded subtly, acknowledging both her skill and the lessons he had just absorbed. In that moment, the jammed M82 became more than a weapon or a mechanical problem. It had been a test of patience, observation, and skill, and Elena Harper had demonstrated mastery over all three. Fletcher realized that he had been granted a rare glimpse of precision, intelligence, and lethal calm qualities few could ever hope to combine. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the base. Soldiers resumed their duties, but the energy of the encounter lingered like static electricity in the air. Fletcher stood silently, reflecting on the rare talent before him. Elena moved toward the horizon, rifle in hand, calm, collected, unstoppable. One thing became clear: the jammed rifle had been insignificant. The real revelation was her mastery, her discipline, and the quiet power that radiated from someone who had conquered far greater challenges than a simple mechanic asterisk. Failure. And with that understanding, the foundation for mutual respect and the stories yet to unfold was firmly established. The morning sun crested over jagged mountains, painting the forward operating base in pale gold and long shadows. Dust swirled in the wake of vehicles, carrying the faint scent of gunpowder and machinery. Soldiers moved with routine precision, checking weapons, loading gear, and preparing for patrols. But beneath the mundane rhythm of the base, a silent tension buzzed an undercurrent that only those accustomed to war could recognize. Every soldier sensed that today was different, though no one spoke it aloud. Sergeant Elena Harper moved. Among them with deliberate ease, the M82 slung across her back. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, swept the camp, assessing patterns, rotations, and vulnerabilities. Even as she walked, she memorized angles, noting guard positions and the occasional careless gesture of a soldier unaware of how closely she observed. Each step, each glance was measured, calculated for precision and efficiency. She carried herself with a calm that bordered on imperious, yet there was no arrogance in her movements. It was the quiet confidence of a soldier whose skill was absolute and whose experience had tempered both caution and resolve. The briefing room was crowded, soldiers and officers clustered around maps, laptops, and digital displays. Fletcher entered silently behind Elena, carrying a toolbox for maintenance checks on her equipment. He had spent hours yesterday ensuring her rifle was flawless. Today, he would double-check every piece of gear, every sight adjustment, every bullet. Despite his professionalism, a flicker of apprehension lingered. This mission was unlike any routine exercise. It required precision, patience, and nerves of steel, and Elena's involvement elevated the stakes to a level that made even him pause. Colonel Mitchell, a stern figure with decades of combat experience, began the briefing. He pointed to a mountainous ridge, a few miles beyond the base. Satellite imagery and intercepted communications had identified a high-value insurgent. Leader operating in the area, a man responsible for multiple attacks on Allied forces and civilians. Intelligence suggested he was heavily guarded, moving between hidden compounds with deadly efficiency. The mission: neutralize the target without civilian casualties and without exposing Allied forces to unnecessary risk. Elena stepped closer. To the map, her green eyes scanning every detail, memorizing the ridge's contours, possible vantage points, and likely patrol routes. She asked precise questions about wind patterns, elevation, visibility, and enemy routines. The officers responded, impressed by her depth of knowledge. Fletcher observed her quietly, realizing that her reputation wasn't hyperbole. Every question she asked revealed tactical insight, situational awareness, and a level of foresight that most soldiers only dreamed of achieving after years of experience. "You'll be moving in from the east," Colonel Mitchell said. "Satellite feeds show lighter patrols there. You'll have cover and visibility. Avoid the main compound. Approach silently. No mistakes." His gaze lingered on Elena, a mixture of trust and unspoken concern. He knew her record, her precision, her ability to strike when the moment demanded. But even he felt the gravity of asking one soldier to carry out such a delicate operation. Elena absorbed every word, her mind already formulating multiple approaches. She visualized the terrain, calculating bullet trajectories, estimating the effects of wind and gravity over long distances, and predicting enemy movements. Her calm exterior belied the intensity of thought coursing through her mind. Fletcher, watching from the side, felt a growing respect. The woman who had struggled with a jammed M82 yesterday now commanded the room with the quiet authority of someone who lived and breathed precision. After the briefing, Fletcher approached her privately. "I've triple-checked your rifle and ammo," he said. His tone was professional, but there was a faint edge of concern. "I know it's reliable now, but you're taking on a serious target. I want you to know I've got your back if anything goes wrong." Elena gave a slight nod, her gaze steady and unwavering. "I don't expect mistakes, Fletcher. Neither from myself nor from you," she replied. Her words were calm, but the weight behind them was unmistakable. Fletcher realized that this wasn't arrogance. It was confidence earned through years of survival, experience, and hard-won victories. As she prepared her gear, Alana's meticulous attention to detail became apparent. Every component of the rifle was examined, every scope adjustment calculated, every cartridge inspected. Her gloves, tactical vest, and camouflage were adjusted for optimal mobility and concealment. She moved with the precision of someone who knew that any error, no matter how minor, could be fatal. Fletcher checked her ammunition and her sidearm. One last time, satisfied but silently aware of the immense responsibility now resting on her shoulders. Soldiers in the base murmured quietly, aware that this mission was high risk, high reward, and that Elena Harper was their most capable asset. Some whispered about her 305 confirmed kills, others about the calm efficiency with which she handled threats. Rumors and legends collided with reality, creating an aura of tension and awe around her. Fletcher felt the weight of the moment. He had handed her weapons, ensured her safety mechanically, but the human element, the unpredictability of war, remained beyond his control. The sun climbed higher, casting the ridge in stark contrast against the desert floor. Elena moved toward the armored transport, checking coordinates and confirming escape routes. Fletcher followed closely, carrying the remaining gear, ensuring that nothing would fail at the critical moment. Even the hum of engines and the clatter of vehicles seemed to fade into insignificance in her focus. Every step, every adjustment, was deliberate. Fletcher could only admire her discipline, noting how seamlessly she blended methodical preparation with instinctive precision. Finally, the convoy set off, dust plumes trailing behind the vehicles. Elena remained calm, her eyes scanning constantly, tracking the terrain and anticipating threats. Fletcher rode nearby, scanning her movements, knowing that while her skill was undeniable, the unpredictability of a live combat mission was the ultimate test. Soldiers exchanged glances, each aware that Elena was the linchpin of success. One spoke of fear, but an unspoken tension wrapped around them like the desert heat. During the drive, Fletcher observed her quietly. The calmness she exuded was almost supernatural. Her gaze tracked every change in terrain, every shadow, every distant movement. She whispered calculations to herself, adjusting angles, distances, and timing. Fletcher realized that the jammed rifle had been a minor prelude. This mission would demand far more. Yet there was no hesitation, no doubt, only focus, precision, and the quiet storm of experience that defined Elena Harper. Arriving at the edge of the ridge, the convoy halted. Soldiers disembarked silently, setting up observation points and preparing for the final approach. Elena moved like a shadow, adjusting her rifle, checking wind speed, and scanning for patrol patterns. Fletcher checked her gear once more, nodding silently. "Good luck," he whispered, though the words felt inadequate for the gravity of what lay ahead. Elena simply nodded, her eyes never leaving the terrain. As she advanced toward her vantage point, moving through rocky outcrops and sparse vegetation, the tension became almost tangible. Each step, each breath was calculated, each decision balancing the life of one soldier against the success of an entire mission. Fletcher observed, heart pounding in quiet anticipation, as Elena disappeared into the undulating landscape, a single figure against the vast desert canvas. The soldiers at the base watched through scopes and monitors, tracking her progress with bated breath. Fletcher felt a mix of fear, respect, and awe. He knew the reports of her kills were real, but watching her operate in real time was a revelation. Each decision, each calculated movement reinforced the truth. This was no ordinary sniper. Elena Harper was a master, a ghost, and a force whose skill could tip the scales in a war where precision was everything. Hours passed in silence, broken only by distant gunfire and the occasional radio check. Fletcher maintained the base, monitoring signals and preparing contingencies, but his attention remained fixed on Elena's progress. The mission demanded patience, observation, and trust in the sniper's expertise. And Elena, as always, delivered beyond expectation, her every calculation, every movement, and every shot perfectly aligned with the objective. As the sun began its descent, casting the desert in long shadows, Fletcher allowed himself a quiet realization. He had witnessed the calm before, during, and after lethal precision. The jammed rifle had been a minor test. This mission, with all its risks and stakes, was the true measure. And Elena Harper, with unmatched skill and unwavering focus, was proving why she was not only a sniper, but a legend in motion. The desert air was heavy, still, almost unreal in its calm, as if the mountains themselves held their breath. Sergeant Elena Harper moved through the rocky terrain with the stealth and precision of a shadow, each step calculated to avoid loose stones that could betray her position. Her M82 rested against her shoulder, weight balanced perfectly, fingers lightly brushing the trigger in silent readiness. Every movement was a study in discipline, honed by years of experience where a single misstep could mean life or death. Fletcher, back at the base, monitored satellite feeds and drone surveillance, eyes glued to screens that tracked Elena's every move. He could see her silhouette slipping among rocks, almost invisible against the jagged mountainside. Despite the distance, he felt the tension radiating through the feed, like a cord connecting him to the sniper in the field. He adjusted the cameras, zooming in to follow her methodical crawl, silently counting her steps, noting her use of cover, her ability to blend into the desert landscape. Elena paused atop a ridge, scanning below for the target's patrols. Her green eyes, sharp and calculating, tracked the enemy movements with meticulous attention. A squad of guards moved in a staggered pattern, rifles slung, eyes scanning the horizon. She noted the gaps, the predictable pauses, the moments when their attention faltered. Timing was everything. One wrong shot or miscalculation could alert the compound, force an early confrontation, and compromise the mission. Her mind, always several moves ahead, calculated trajectories, wind drift, bullet drop, and even the possibility of ricochet from rocky outcrops. She adjusted her scope, checking 0 points and stabilizing her breathing. The desert wind shifted slightly, carrying particles of dust that could alter the path of a bullet over hundreds of meters. Elena's lips moved in silent calculation, murmuring corrections as her finger hovered over the trigger. The rifle, now flawless, felt like an extension of herself. She could feel the tension in every mechanism, every spring, every calibrated adjustment. This weapon and she were one, a partnership forged through countless missions and shared survival. Suddenly, a glint of metal caught her eye. A sniper, hidden among boulders, attempting to locate her position. Elena froze, analyzing his stance. The angle of his scope, the trajectory of his line of fire. The enemy's movement was subtle, but to her trained eye, it was a fatal flaw. She adjusted slightly, taking the shot only after calculating the perfect timing, the wind, and the recoil compensation. The enemy sniper went down silently. A single round, precise, lethal. Fletcher exhaled audibly at the base, gripping the edge of his console. He had seen her skill in training and reports, but witnessing it live was a revelation. Elena continued her advance, moving from cover to cover, invisible yet omnipresent. Every patrol she encountered, every shadow she passed, she calculated, and neutralized if necessary. But she wasn't reckless. Each action was deliberate, precise, and always measured against the mission objective. Civilians, livestock, and innocent personnel were never at risk. She had perfected the art of lethal efficiency, deadly, yet restrained. Fletcher observed quietly, a growing mixture of awe and anxiety. The distance, the complexity, the unpredictability of terrain, all were challenges she overcame with remarkable calm. The insurgent leader's compound came into view, a cluster of low buildings, guarded and fortified, with patrols moving predictably along narrow paths. Elena found a position with perfect visibility and minimal exposure, crouching behind a rocky ledge. Her M82 rested on a small bipod she had deployed with practiced ease, allowing her stability over long distances. Through the scope, she watched the guards, noting their rotations, timing, and lapses in attention. Her heart beat steadily, controlled, her mind unflinching. Then came the first real test. An unexpected patrol veered off its pattern, heading directly toward her position. Elena froze, assessing. The patrol would see her if she didn't act. She calculated, adjusted, and fired not lethally, but strategically, targeting the rocky ground near their feet, causing a small explosion of dust and debris that distracted the guards. They turned, scanning the desert as she melted further into the shadows, unnoticed. Fletcher muttered a quiet praise into the comms. Brilliant. Perfect execution. Advancing closer, she spotted another sniper attempt, this one coordinated with the patrols, clearly meant to flush her out. Elena's experience became apparent in full force. She moved laterally, covering herself with shadows, timing every breath and movement, and firing only when she had absolute certainty. 2 enemy snipers neutralized in quick succession, each shot precise, each death silent. Fletcher's pulse raced even from miles away as he realized the deadly efficiency with which she operated. This was not just skill. This was instinct perfected through experience. A compound itself was heavily guarded, with walls high enough to obstruct direct line of sight and prevent easy infiltration. Elena studied the layout, noting weaknesses, blind corners, shifts in guard attention, and gaps in patrols. She prepared for the final approach, calculating escape routes, timing, and bullet trajectories. Every detail mattered. One misstep could cost the mission or her life. Fletcher adjusted satellite feeds, providing real-time updates and warnings, but he knew she didn't need them. She relied on her training, her instincts, and the intimate knowledge of her weapon. Finally, the critical moment arrived. Elena identified the insurgent leader moving within the compound, flanked by guards, seemingly unaware of her presence. She adjusted her scope for wind, distance, and elevation, her finger lightly brushing the trigger. Time slowed. The desert wind shifted subtly. She compensated. 1 breath, 2 breaths. She fired. The leader fell instantly, a single, precise round. Guards scrambled, but Elena had already anticipated their movement, firing selectively, neutralizing threats without unnecessary risk. The mission objective had been accomplished with surgical efficiency. Fletcher exhaled, a mixture of relief and awe washing over him. He had watched elite snipers in training, studied tactical simulations, but nothing had prepared him for witnessing Elena Harper in live action. She had taken a near impossible situation and executed it flawlessly. Every shot, every move, every calculated decision was a testament to her unparalleled skill. Soldiers at the base, monitoring via drone feeds, were similarly stunned. This wasn't just another sniper mission. It was a masterclass in lethal precision. After the final shots, Elena melted back into the terrain, retreating through pre-planned paths, covering herself with natural features and shadows. Fletcher tracked her progress obsessively, noting each movement, ready to advise or provide support. Though he knew her skill made intervention unnecessary, Elena had executed not only the elimination of the target, but the extraction phase with the same meticulous care. The desert sun dipped low, casting elongated shadows across the ridge. Elena reached the rendezvous point, her M82 secured, her movements fluid and controlled despite hours of exposure. Fletcher met her, checking gear, scanning her rifle, and confirming mission success. The silence between them was comfortable, a shared acknowledgement of the extraordinary execution they had just witnessed. No words could fully capture the precision, calm, and lethal efficiency she had demonstrated. Elena lowered her scope, eyes scanning the horizon one last time before allowing herself a brief relaxation. Fletcher, standing nearby, felt the full weight of respect he owed her, not just for completing the mission, but for the professionalism, intelligence, and skill she displayed at every step. He realized that the jammed rifle episode had been a mere prelude. This was the true measure of her abilities, and he had been fortunate enough to witness it firsthand. The mission concluded flawlessly, without unnecessary casualties, without compromise. Soldiers returned to base, whispering in awe about the sniper whose reputation had preceded her, but whose skill exceeded even the wildest stories. Fletcher, standing beside her, understood the full scope of her legend. Elena Harper was not only a sniper, she was a force of nature, an embodiment of patience, precision, and lethal efficiency. As darkness fell, she packed her gear, moving with the same calm efficiency as she had all day. Fletcher prepared the debriefing, but both knew the story of this mission would be recounted repeatedly in whispers and reports, not merely for its Success, but for the artistry of execution. Elena's presence in the field had redefined what was possible in sniper operations. Even as the stars appeared over the desert sky, the echoes of her movements lingered. Fletcher couldn't shake the feeling that he had just witnessed something extraordinary, something beyond training, beyond preparation, beyond ordinary human capability. Elena Harper had demonstrated not only lethal skill, but an almost supernatural calm, intuition, and mastery that few could hope to match. And yet, despite the success, both knew this was far from the end. The mission had been a test of skill, patience, and precision, and the world they operated in offered no guarantees. Elena's record, now reinforced by another flawless operation, would continue to grow, but the weight of every decision, every kill, and every choice remained an unseen burden she carried silently. The forward operating base had returned to its usual rhythm after the successful operation, yet an air of quiet awe lingered among the soldiers. Whispers circulated near the armory and the mess hall, soft exchanges of disbelief and admiration for what had just transpired. Sergeant Elena Harper, calm and collected, walked through the base with her rifle slung over her shoulder. Every soldier she passed seemed to sense her aura, a blend of lethal efficiency, experience, and quiet authority. Corporal James Fletcher observed her from a distance, hands folded over his chest, leaning against a dusty supply crate. He had monitored the entire mission, watching every calculated move, every precise shot, every moment of her lethal grace. Yet, despite witnessing the flawless operation in real time, he was still grappling with the reality that one woman had accomplished what few thought possible. Fletcher's mind raced, replaying her actions, analyzing the skill, the patience, and the composure she had displayed. The jammed M82 from a few days prior felt almost trivial in comparison, a minor test that now seemed insignificant. The base. Commander called a small, impromptu ceremony in the courtyard, meant to honor the success of the mission and the efficiency of its execution. Soldiers assembled, curious, murmuring quietly as Elena stepped forward. She moved with the same quiet grace she had exhibited during the mission, calm, poised, and unflinchingly confident. Fletcher followed reluctantly, carrying the extra equipment, secretly prepared to check her rifle once more, though he knew, deep down, it was unnecessary. Colonel Mitchell stepped forward, holding a medal in his hand. His stern expression betrayed a hint of pride, and as he approached Elena, the murmurs of the assembled soldiers intensified. Fletcher's eyes narrowed, scanning the medal. It looked ordinary at first glance, yet something about the gleaming surface, the engraving, and the weight it carried suggested significance beyond the material. Elena Harper, Colonel Mitchell began, his voice carrying over the courtyard, for extraordinary skill, precision, and courage under circumstances that required unparalleled professionalism. It is my honor to present you with this medal. He handed it to her, the metallic surface gleaming in the afternoon sun. The base held its collective breath as Elena accepted it, her expression calm, unassuming, and inscrutable. Fletcher stepped closer, curiosity overpowering him. As Elena turned the medal slightly in her hands, the engraving caught the sunlight, revealing a series of numbers and a phrase that caused Fletcher's eyes to widen in disbelief. 305 confirmed kills. 305. His mind faltered for a heartbeat as he tried to reconcile the calm, precise, almost ethereal soldier before him with the magnitude of what he was seeing. 305 confirmed kills. The weight of the revelation hit him like a physical blow. Every interaction, every step of the mission, every calculation she had made suddenly clicked into place. The calmness in her eyes, the unshakable composure, the surgical efficiency with which she had eliminated the enemy leader, none of it was luck or extraordinary intuition alone. It was experience, honed over countless missions, each one a silent testament to her deadly skill. Fletcher felt a mix of awe, disbelief, and something bordering on guilt for having doubted her capability just days ago. Elena met his gaze, green eyes steady and unyielding. There was no boastfulness, no arrogance, only quiet acceptance of what the medal represented. Fletcher noticed how lightly she handled it, almost as if it were a tool rather than a symbol of lethal achievement. "It's accurate," she said simply, her voice calm, even when delivered in front of a gathered crowd. Every one of them. A hush fell over the courtyard. Soldiers exchanged wide-eyed glances, some whispering softly, others visibly stepping back in awe. This wasn't the mere boasting of a soldier proud of minor successes. This was a record of unparalleled precision, of experience born from years of combat, and of a soldier who had survived far longer and far more deadly circumstances than most could imagine. Fletcher's respect deepened, but so did his realization of the invisible weight she carried. He remembered the jammed M82 and the casual way he had offered assistance. At the time, he had thought it was a minor inconvenience. Now he saw it as a symbolic prelude. The rifle was irrelevant compared to the skill, patience, and cold precision that Elena Harper possessed. She could have fired any weapon flawlessly, any distance, under the harshest conditions. Yet the medal represented more than success. It represented survival, focus, and the quiet endurance required to carry out missions that others could not even imagine. Colonel Mitchell stepped back, allowing the soldiers to process the moment. "This medal," he said, his voice steady, "is not just for what you accomplished today. It is a recognition of a career marked by unparalleled excellence, and the lives your skill has protected in countless operations. Sergeant Harper, you have earned our respect, admiration, and gratitude." Fletcher watched Elena accept the medal, the sunlight catching the medal and illuminating her face. She gave a faint, almost imperceptible nod, acknowledging the honor, without allowing it to define her. He realized something profound. Her skill wasn't for recognition. It was for duty, for precision, for survival. The medal was merely a tangible acknowledgement of something she had carried silently for years. He found himself stepping closer, finally allowing his own admiration to manifest. I didn't know," he admitted quietly, almost under his breath, the words more for himself than for her. 305. That's... He faltered, struggling to express the weight of his realization. Elena's gaze met his, calm and measured. "It's not a number to be celebrated," she said softly, yet firmly. "Each one represents a choice, a life, and the consequences that follow. Skill doesn't erase responsibility. You remember that." Her words carried a gravity that Fletcher felt deep in his chest. He nodded silently, understanding that the medal was a symbol, but the real story lay in the discipline, restraint, and endurance behind it. As the soldiers dispersed, whispers continuing to echo through the base, Fletcher remained by her side. He realized that this moment had changed everything. The respect he felt wasn't just for her skill. It was for the unspoken burdens she bore, the precision with which she executed her duties, and the calm authority she carried, without fanfare or arrogance. Elena turned, her posture straight, her expression unwavering. "We've done what we needed to today," she said simply, slipping the medal into her vest. "Now we focus on what comes next." Fletcher nodded, understanding that her mind was already on future challenges, on survival, and on precision. The medal, impressive as it was secondary to the work, the discipline, and the responsibility she carried every day. In the quiet moments that followed, Fletcher reflected on the enormity of her achievements. He had known of her reputation, had heard the rumors, and had been curious, but seeing it in context, seeing the calm, lethal execution of her skill, and now the tangible acknowledgement of 305 confirmed kills, left him in awe. The woman before him was not merely a sniper. She was a living legend, tempered by experience and defined by discipline and quiet authority. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the base. Soldiers returned to their duties, though the energy of the revelation lingered like static electricity in the air. Fletcher walked alongside Elena, silently observing the grace with which she moved. He realized that the medal, the recognition, and even the mission itself were fleeting markers. What truly mattered was her unyielding skill, her focus, and the extraordinary precision she brought to every moment of danger. That evening, as the base settled into a low hum of activity, Fletcher found himself thinking differently, not just about her skill, but about the human cost of her record. 305 confirmed kills were not a number to boast about. They were a testament to survival, judgment, and discipline under pressure. He understood now that her calm demeanor, her lethal precision, and her quiet authority were all part of the same extraordinary package. For Elena Harper, the medal was merely a symbol, a fleeting acknowledgement of a lifetime of focus, precision, and discipline. For Fletcher, it was a revelation, a stark reminder of the extraordinary skill he had witnessed firsthand. And for the soldiers at the base, it was the moment when myth became reality. The sniper whose reputation had preceded her arrival was more formidable than any of them could have imagined. As night fell, stars blinking above the rugged desert, Fletcher and Elena walked toward the armory together. Words were few, but the unspoken understanding between them was profound. Respect had been earned, awe had been established, and the record of 305 confirmed kills was no longer just a number. It was the proof of mastery, endurance, and an unflinching commitment to precision and duty. A medal gleamed faintly under the moonlight as Elena stored it carefully in her vest. Fletcher looked at her once more, realizing that he had witnessed something extraordinary, a soldier whose skill, discipline, and calm composure defied belief. And he knew that this moment, though significant, was only one chapter in a career defined by precision, experience, and unyielding focus. The desert night stretched vast and silent, a blanket of stars shimmering above the forward operating base. Sergeant Elena Harper stood alone atop a low ridge just outside the camp, the weight of the medal still tucked inside her vest. The wind whispered across the sand, carrying dust and faint echoes of distant artillery. Fletcher had returned to the base a few minutes earlier, checking communications and preparing reports, leaving Elena with nothing but the desert, her rifle, and her thoughts. For hours, she had replayed the mission in her mind, the careful calculations, the timing of every shot, the methodical elimination of threats. But unlike most soldiers who might celebrate a flawless operation, her thoughts weren't on the kill or even the success of the mission. They were on the cost, the weight of each decision, and the lives forever altered by her precision. 305 confirmed kills, a staggering number, and each one etched into memory, each one a decision, a calculation, a burden she carried silently. She crouched beside a jagged rock, M82 resting against her shoulder, and gazed at the distant lights of the base. In the calm of night, the adrenaline faded, replaced by reflection. Each operation had demanded focus, precision, and discipline, yet no amount of skill could erase the moral weight of what she had done. She had survived where others had fallen, struck with lethal accuracy where others had hesitated. The medal was a recognition, yes, but it was also a reminder of the cost of survival and of the decisions that defined a soldier's life. Fletcher's voice crackled through the radio, breaking the silence. "Elena, you there? Everything okay?" "Yeah," she replied softly, though her voice carried the weight of thought and reflection. "Just thinking about the mission?" Fletcher asked, cautiously, aware of the delicate emotional balance she maintained. "About all of them," she said, her gaze fixed on the stars. The ones I've saved, the ones I've had to remove. Each choice was calculated, necessary, but necessary doesn't make it easy. Her voice was steady, but the undercurrent of exhaustion and reflection was palpable. Fletcher felt a deep empathy, realizing that the calm, lethal efficiency she displayed on the battlefield came at a cost invisible to others. The desert wind shifted, stirring up fine particles of sand that brushed against her face. She ran a gloved hand over her rifle, fingers tracing the stock and barrel as if grounding herself in the tool that had been both her instrument and her companion for countless missions. The M82 had become more than a weapon. It was an extension of her focus, her discipline, and her judgment. But with it came responsibility she carried silently, without complaint or boast. Fletcher's voice returned through the radio, quieter now. "You've been through a lot, Elena. Does it ever weigh on you?" She paused, considering the question carefully. Few had asked, and even fewer had asked with sincerity, rather than fear or curiosity. "Every single day," she admitted finally, her voice almost a whisper. "It's not just the shots or the missions. It's the choices before them, the patience to wait, the focus to act, and the knowledge that one mistake could cost lives. Not just enemy lives, ours too, or civilians caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. That responsibility. It never leaves you." Fletcher remained silent for a moment, allowing her words to settle. He thought of the medal, gleaming faintly in her vest, and the 305 confirmed kills. Numbers, he realized, were meaningless without context. They did not capture the weight of the decisions, the sleepless nights, the discipline required to survive and operate with precision in circumstances most could not endure. Elena Harper's record was not a boast. It was a ledger of sacrifice, focus, and endurance. She glanced down at the medal briefly, tracing the engraved numbers with a fingertip. 305. Each one represented a decision, a moment, when she had to trust her training, her judgment, and her resolve. She had never taken it lightly. Each kill, no matter how necessary, left an imprint etched invisibly into her mind, silently carried from mission to mission. She thought of comrades lost, missions failed, and the lives she had inadvertently impacted. The medal was a symbol. Yes, but it was also a reminder of the cost of survival in the shadows of war. Fletcher's voice cut through her thoughts again, softer this time. "How do you keep going? I mean, with all of it. 305 confirmed kills. That's unimaginable." Elena exhaled slowly, her eyes drifting to the horizon where desert hills merged with twilight. "You focus on the task at hand," she said. "Not the number, not the weight. Just the shot, the angle, the timing, the mission. You honor those you've lost, those you protect, and those you eliminate by doing your job with precision. That's all you can do. The rest, you carry silently, and you survive. That's what matters." Fletcher absorbed her words, realizing that they carried a depth beyond the battlefield. It wasn't just about survival. It was about discipline, judgment, and the moral clarity to act when action was necessary. Elena Harper didn't just execute missions. She embodied the weight of every choice, and the calm precision that allowed her to navigate life and death with unmatched skill. Night deepened, stars glittering above like distant beacons. The desert was silent, save for the whisper of wind and the faint hum of the bass in the distance. Elena rose, shifting her rifle to her back, and began a slow, deliberate walk back toward camp. Each step was careful, measured, a reflection of her enduring discipline. Fletcher followed, maintaining a respectful distance, acutely aware that he was witnessing not just a soldier, but a woman defined by focus, sacrifice, and moral rigor. As they approached the base, the camp lights glimmered, soldiers moving about. In routine, unaware of the full scope of the silent battle waged in Elena's mind. She paused for a moment at the edge of the camp, gazing back at the ridge where the mission had begun. The adrenaline of execution had faded, replaced by reflection, responsibility, and the quiet acknowledgement of her own limits and strengths. Fletcher watched her, understanding fully the complexity of the person before him. "Fletcher," she said quietly, breaking the silence, "you need to understand something. Skill alone doesn't define you here. Precision, patience, and discipline define survival. The medal, it's meaningless compared to the burden you carry, the focus you must maintain, and the responsibility that never ends." Fletcher nodded, feeling a deeper respect than he had ever experienced. He had seen her skill, observed her precision, and now understood the weight behind every shot, every mission, and every decision. Elena Harper was more than a sniper. She was a living embodiment of discipline, judgment, and the unyielding human capacity to endure, survive, and act with calculated precision in a world of chaos. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the desert night stretching endlessly. Around them, stars sparkled overhead, and the base hummed quietly below. Fletcher felt a profound sense of understanding settle over him. Elena's record of 305 confirmed kills was more than a number. It was a testament to endurance, sacrifice, and focus. Each kill, each mission, had forged the woman he now stood beside, precise, disciplined, and silently carrying the weight of countless decisions. Finally, Elena turned toward the base, the medal secure in her vest, her rifle balanced and ready. "Let's get back," she said simply. "Rest. Tomorrow, we prepare for what comes next. The work doesn't end." Fletcher followed, reflecting on the enormity of her journey, her skill, and the silent burdens she bore. He realized that the respect, admiration, and awe he felt were only beginning to scratch the surface of understanding the magnitude of Elena Harper's life and career. Each mission, each kill, each calculated action was part of a larger story, one of survival, precision, and the quiet heroism that defined her in ways that no medal could fully capture. As they re-entered the camp, the night embraced them, carrying with it the weight of reflection, sacrifice, and the unspoken understanding that Elena Harper's story was far from ordinary. She was a soldier, a sniper, and a legend forged through focus, discipline, and the unyielding responsibility of life and death. Fletcher knew he had witnessed something extraordinary, and that the lessons of tonight would linger, shaping his understanding of precision, sacrifice, and the human cost of true mastery. The night settled over the forward operating base like a heavy blanket, but serenity was fleeting. Sergeant Elena Harper moved with quiet efficiency through the dimly lit camp, checking her equipment and adjusting her rifle. Despite the mission's success earlier that day, a gnawing sense of vigilance remained, an instinct honed by years in combat. Fletcher followed at a respectful distance, monitoring communications and satellite feeds. Both understood the unspoken truth. In a war zone, no victory was permanent, and threats often emerged where least expected. The base had grown quieter after the formal medal ceremony, soldiers retreating to tents or vehicles, yet the tension lingered like static electricity in the air. Elena noticed subtle shifts, faint footprints in the sand outside the perimeter, minor movements inconsistent with standard patrol patterns. Her green eyes scanned the shadows, unblinking, calculating. Fletcher, monitoring the feeds, picked up anomalies too. Faint heat signatures moving along the outer fence, synchronized and deliberate. "Elena," Fletcher whispered into the comms, voice tense. "You might want to check the eastern perimeter. I'm seeing multiple heat signatures, moving too coordinated to be local wildlife." Elena paused, crouching behind a supply crate. The desert wind shifted, carrying the scent of smoke and faint engine oil. "I see them," she replied quietly. Her pulse remained steady, controlled, but her mind raced with tactical possibilities. Multiple intruders at night, coordinated. With no prior intel, this was not a routine incursion. Fletcher's earlier admiration now mingled with concern. He understood that even the most skilled sniper could face danger in unexpected circumstances. She moved with precision, checking angles, shadows, and potential cover points. Every movement was deliberate, minimizing exposure. Fletcher watched, heart racing, as she navigated the perimeter with silent efficiency. The unknown intruders approached, careful but audacious. Elena anticipated their paths, analyzing distance, elevation, and potential attack vectors. Each step, each breath was part of a silent calculation. The desert, which had seemed still moments ago, now teemed with tension. Suddenly, a low rustle erupted near the eastern fence. Elena froze, eyes narrowing. Fletcher monitored the live feeds, adjusting. Zooms detecting the slightest movement. Two figures emerged from the shadows, armed, attempting to breach the base undetected. Elena's instincts, honed over countless missions, took over. She silently adjusted her M82, finger lightly resting near the trigger, eyes locked on both. Intruders. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and the threat could escalate into a full-blown attack. The first intruder, unaware of her presence, moved closer to a supply vehicle. Elena calculated the perfect timing, considering wind, distance, and bullet trajectory. In a single, controlled motion, she fired. The intruder collapsed silently, neutralized with precision, his weapon dropping to the sand. Fletcher exhaled. Into the comms, whispering, "Perfect shot." Yet there was no time to celebrate. The second figure reacted instantly, turning toward her. Elena shifted laterally behind cover, adjusting her stance, maintaining concealment. The second intruder fired a single round, missing by inches. Sand erupted where the bullet struck nearby. Fletcher's pulse raced as he tracked the exchange. Elena's mind raced faster. She calculated angles, potential ricochets, and the intruders' most probable escape routes. The desert, illuminated only by sparse base lights and moonlight, became a chessboard, and she was several moves ahead. She fired again, this time not lethally but strategically targeting the terrain near his feet. A cloud of dust and debris obscured his vision, forcing him to duck and lose balance. Using the momentary advantage, she advanced, keeping low and silent. Fletcher watched, all mingled with tension. Every decision was deliberate, each calculated to neutralize the threat, while minimizing risk to herself and the base. The second intruder, frustrated and disoriented, raised his weapon again, this time firing multiple rounds. Elena's training took over fully. She moved fluidly, using shadows and obstacles for cover, returning precise, controlled fire. Fletcher monitored heat signatures and ballistic paths, noting her seamless coordination between observation and action. Even under fire, she remained composed, lethal, and unflinching, a testament to both her skill and experience. Within moments, the threat was neutralized. The intruder lay incapacitated, disarmed, while Elena swept the area to ensure no hidden dangers remained. Fletcher exhaled, relief mingling with awe. She had turned a sudden, dangerous incursion into a controlled encounter, eliminating threats with surgical precision. The base remained secure, and not a single allied soldier was harmed. Elena assessed the perimeter, eyes scanning every corner. She identified entry points, analyzing the breach for weaknesses. The intruders had been professional trained, deliberate and coordinated, but they underestimated her skill. Fletcher transmitted data back to command, cataloging intruder movements and behavior patterns. "They knew your position would be compromised eventually," he said quietly. They underestimated your timing, focus, and control. She nodded subtly, continuing her meticulous inspection. Precision and patience win when arrogance leads the opposition. This wasn't luck. It was anticipation, preparation, and observation. They exposed themselves because they miscalculated, and that's all the advantage I needed. Her calm voice carried the weight of experience and understanding, leaving Fletcher in quiet awe. As the threat was neutralized, Fletcher approached her physically, ensuring her rifle and ammunition were intact. "You're incredible," he whispered, barely audible. "I've seen your record, watched you in missions, but seeing you in real time, it's something else entirely." Elena checked her weapon, confirming its readiness. "Skill is necessary," she said quietly, "but discipline, patience, and focus determine survival. Every mission, every shot, every decision carries weight." 305 confirmed. Kills, each one required this level of awareness. The intruders tonight? They were just another calculation, another test of preparation and composure. Fletcher nodded slowly, absorbing the truth behind her words. This wasn't just skill. It was mastery born of relentless focus and experience. Her calmness under pressure, her anticipation of every variable, and her seamless execution of lethal precision were beyond ordinary comprehension. The medal, the confirmed kills, the recent mission, they all converged here, in the quiet triumph of survival and the demonstration of her unparalleled expertise. Yet even as relief settled over the base, Elena remained vigilant. She scanned the horizon one last time, ensuring no additional threats lurked in the shadows. The desert, now silent again, carried the faint echoes of danger past, but whispered possibilities of threats still unseen. Fletcher observed her, realizing that the calm, lethal efficiency he had witnessed wasn't temporary, it was a constant, a discipline she maintained, whether in mission or after-action reflection. For a long moment, the base seemed to breathe. With her, soldiers moving in their routines, unaware of the potential disaster that had been averted through a combination of anticipation, skill, and precision. Fletcher walked beside her, silently acknowledging the enormity of what had just occurred. Elena Harper's reputation, already formidable, had grown exponentially in his eyes. She wasn't just a sniper. She was a sentinel, a guardian of lethal efficiency and survival, capable of turning potential disaster into calculated control. As dawn approached, painting the desert in muted golds and silvers, Elena finally allowed herself a brief moment of rest. Fletcher monitored the perimeter, ensuring communications and surveillance remained intact. Yet both understood the silent truth. In the world they inhabited, calm vigilance and preparation were the only constants. Elena's skill, judgment, and experience were the difference between life and death for herself, her comrades, and the base. She crouched briefly, adjusting her rifle and surveying the horizon one last time. Fletcher watched, knowing that the story of the unexpected threat would be retold, but few would understand the precision, discipline, and lethal focus required to neutralize it without a single casualty. The desert had tested her, and she had passed, just as she had in countless missions before. Elena's eyes met Fletcher's briefly, a subtle nod acknowledging the unspoken understanding between them. "The mission isn't over," she said, quietly, not truly. "Threats will come, and each one will test us. What matters is how we respond with precision, patience, and discipline. That's the only way to survive." Fletcher nodded, feeling the weight of both admiration and understanding. Elena Harper wasn't just a sniper executing missions. She was a sentinel navigating the invisible battlefield of strategy, anticipation, and moral responsibility. The unexpected threat had been neutralized, but the lessons, the discipline, and the calm precision would remain, defining both the immediate outcome and the ongoing reality of life in the desert combat zone. Asterisk. As the first light of morning touched the base, Elena prepared to return fully, rifle secured, medal safely tucked away. Fletcher followed, silently reflecting on the gravity of the night's events. He realized that witnessing her mastery in Na-3 action was not merely an observation, it was an education in precision, patience, and the cost of survival. Elena Harper's legend had grown, and he had the rare privilege of seeing her skill, focus, and calm efficiency in the face of an unexpected threat. The morning sun rose over the forward operating base, casting long shadows across the desert, sands and illuminating the scars of countless battles. Sergeant Elena Harper walked through the camp with deliberate calm, every step a reflection of discipline, experience, and quiet authority. The medal rested in her vest, a silent acknowledgement of her unmatched precision and the 305 confirmed kills that had defined her career, but it was no longer her focus. Today, her thoughts were on legacy, respect, and the lives her skill had touched. Fletcher followed closely, carrying the last of the mission's gear, yet keeping a respectful distance. He had witnessed every facet of her skill, the flawless execution of the mission, the meticulous neutralization of an unexpected threat, and the quiet reflection on the weight of her decisions. He understood now that Elena Harper was not merely a sniper or a soldier. She was a sentinel, a guardian, of both precision and moral responsibility in a world defined by chaos and danger. The camp stirred to life around them. Soldiers moved purposefully, tending to equipment, checking weapons, and preparing for the routine of another day. Yet whispers followed Elena wherever she walked, subtle acknowledgments of the awe she inspired. Her reputation, reinforced by the medal and the successful missions, had become almost legendary within the base. Soldiers who had once regarded her as distant or mysterious now looked at her with a mixture of respect, admiration, and quiet reverence. Colonel Mitchell approached, a rare smile softening his normally stern features. "Sergeant Harper," he said, voice carrying authority and respect, "the base owes you more than medals or recognition. Your skill, focus, and discipline have set a standard for everyone here. The missions you've executed, the lives you've protected, and the threats you've neutralized, these are the measures of true leadership and legacy." Elena nodded, her expression calm and unassuming. She had no desire for accolades, only the quiet acknowledgement of duty fulfilled. "I do what is necessary," she replied softly. "Not for medals, not for recognition, but because someone has to. The responsibility is mine, and I accept it fully. Every choice, every action carries weight, and I carry it silently." Fletcher observed quietly, struck by the depth of her humility. He had seen her in action, witnessed her lethal precision, and now understood the emotional and moral discipline behind every confirmed kill. Each of the 305 lives she had taken had left an imprint, a silent ledger of judgment and responsibility. Yet she bore it without complaint, using her skill to protect, defend, and act with precision when others could not. The soldiers gathered for a morning briefing, and Elena took her place at the front, not as a figure of intimidation, but as an example of professionalism and mastery. Fletcher watched as she spoke to the assembled troops, offering guidance on tactics, observation, and discipline. Every word reflected the experience, focus, and calm authority that had defined her career. The base listened, rapt, aware that her advice was forged in the crucible of real combat, where precision and patience were not theoretical, but the difference between life and death. As the briefing concluded, Fletcher walked alongside her to the armory, reflecting on how far she had come. From the incident with the jammed M82 to the flawless execution of the mission, to neutralizing unexpected threats, and now to mentoring others, Elena Harper's journey had become a masterclass in skill, discipline, and moral responsibility. She carried the weight of her actions without complaint, ensuring that each decision was calculated, ethical, and precise. In the quiet of the armory, Fletcher asked the question he had long resisted voicing. "Elena, how do you do it? How do you balance the skill, the focus, and the weight of every decision, every confirmed kill?" She paused, adjusting her rifle and checking the scope with meticulous care. "You focus on what matters most," she said finally. "Precision, discipline, and responsibility. Every shot, every movement, every mission is a choice. You must act with complete awareness, not for recognition, but for the preservation of life and the fulfillment of duty. The weight never disappears, but it becomes a part of you. You learn to carry it, to act despite it, and to teach others to do the same." Fletcher nodded slowly, realizing that her legacy wasn't just the missions she had executed or the threats she had neutralized. It was the standard she had set, the discipline she had embodied, and the lives she had influenced. Through skill, patience, and moral clarity. The medal and the confirmed kills were visible symbols, but the true legacy was intangible. Respect, trust, and the quiet, lethal authority of someone who had mastered not only weapons, but the human and moral dimensions of combat. The day progressed, and Elena moved through the base, offering guidance, observing exercises, and subtly mentoring soldiers. Her presence inspired confidence and focus, creating an atmosphere where precision and discipline became contagious. Fletcher observed quietly, noting how even small gestures, correcting posture, offering advice on sight lines, or demonstrating calculated patience had a profound impact on the younger soldiers. They were learning not just to execute orders, but to embody the principles of focus, responsibility, and moral awareness that had defined her career. Later, in a quiet courtyard, Elena sat with Fletcher and a few select soldiers, sharing insights on tactics, observation, and decision-making under pressure. She spoke of patience, of observing patterns, of calculating risk versus necessity. She spoke not of glory, but of survival, precision, and the ethical responsibility of wielding lethal skill. Fletcher realized that this was the culmination of her journey, transforming experience into knowledge, skill into guidance, and past actions into lessons for the future. The sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert and bathing the base in golden light. Elena and Fletcher walked toward the ridge, where she often went to reflect. The medal rested against her vest, a tangible reminder of her achievements. But her focus remained on the intangible, responsibility, discipline, and the legacy she would leave. "Do you ever think about the past?" Fletcher asked quietly. "The missions, the choices, the lives you've affected?" Elena gazed at the distant mountains, green eyes steady and reflective. "I think about them," she admitted. "Not to dwell, but to learn, to improve, and to honor the weight of every decision. Every mission, every choice, every life impacted these are reminders of what discipline and precision demand. I carry it, but it shapes me, guides me, and informs every action I take. That's the legacy I strive to leave, not medals, not numbers, but skill, responsibility, and focus." Fletcher nodded, absorbing her words. He realized that her story was more than missions, medals, and confirmed kills. It was a testament to human endurance, discipline, and moral responsibility under conditions most could not fathom. Her legacy was not measured solely in numbers, but in the respect she commanded, the guidance she provided, and the example she set for those who would follow in her footsteps. As the stars began to shimmer above the desert, Fletcher and Elena returned to the base. Soldiers moved quietly around them, completing evening routines, yet the aura of respect and admiration lingered. Elena's presence was a reminder that skill without discipline was meaningless, and that true mastery required the quiet balance of precision, patience, and ethical awareness. In the quiet of her quarters, Elena placed the medal carefully on a shelf, its gleam softened by lamplight. She did not dwell on the number engraved, 305 confirmed kills, but instead reflected on the lessons, responsibilities, and discipline each represented. Fletcher observed from the doorway, silently acknowledging the magnitude of what he had witnessed. A soldier whose skill, precision, and moral clarity had forged a legend. That night, the base settled into silence, yet Elena Harper's presence remained a living testament to mastery, discipline, and quiet authority. Fletcher understood that her story, the missions, the confirmed kills, the medal, and the lessons would continue to inspire those around her, shaping the next generation of soldiers who would carry forward the principles she embodied. As the desert winds whispered through the camp, Elena Harper closed her eyes briefly, allowing herself a moment of reflection. She had faced unexpected threats, executed missions with flawless precision, and carried the weight of every decision. Yet her focus remained on the future, on the legacy she would leave, the respect she would command, and the discipline and responsibility that defined not only her skill, but her very life. And in that quiet moment, Fletcher realized that he had witnessed not just a soldier, but a legend in motion, one whose skill, discipline, and moral authority would leave a lasting impact far beyond the desert sands and the missions of today. Elena Harper's story was complete, yet ever continuing. A story of lethal precision, quiet authority, and the unyielding responsibility of true mastery.